Kickstarter games don't always live up to their promises, but I think we've got one today that does. It's called Pillars of Eternity, at least in my estimation it does. This is from Obsidian Entertainment, an RPG vanguard. They've made lots of games that we've enjoyed in the past, but this one, it harkens back to the olden days.
Yeah, you're looking at your TV screens right now and you're thinking, well, this can't be the year 2015.
Is that how they're saying it?
That's how the old people talk. Because everything does look like it's 1989 all over again.
Yeah.
The levels are very expansive, all the characters are very tiny, and in the wake of such great games like Skyrim and like Dragon Age, which are much more cinematic and much more produced or maybe even overproduced, this looks underproduced, it's a little undercooked, and it does harken back to the old school, you're right.
Yeah.
And I kind of like that because I can remember the era.
Obsidian and its team of developers, a lot of those guys were making those types of games back in the day, and it's interesting that Interplay and BioWare were working on different kinds of isometric RPGs. There was Neverwinter Nights, there was the Baldur's Gate series, or Planescape Torment. BioWare went in a different direction, I think, in a lot of ways than Obsidian did, but Obsidian has now worked on some pretty massive properties like Fallout, and I think it's interesting that they've gone back to their roots. Playing something like this, I couldn't help but think of Dragon Age Inquisition, and I couldn't help but feel like I was playing something that was analogous to Dragon Age Inquisition, even though the camera perspective is obviously flipped around, it's an isometric thing, top-down of looking, and you're reading a ton in this game. It still is an incredibly satisfying role-playing experience where you're leveling up and encountering all kinds of really cool allies along the way and getting into fights with demonic creations. There's a lot more of strategic elements at play in this game, but it's just as thrilling and rewarding and as much escapism as Dragon Age Inquisition, which was our Rocket and Ray Gun Game of the Year winner last year.
You know, I've been complaining about lots of things on the show lately, and one of the things I complain about is always the look-back kind of games, like Shovel Knight, like Axiom Verge, games that are sort of riffing on games that were hugely successful in the 80s and 90s. This game does that, but I don't feel like there have been too many RPGs at this point that look back to this era from Neverwinter Nights and from Baldur's Gate, and so I was really ready for this, but you're exactly right. There's so much reading in this, and I mean, the fiction here is incredibly complicated, and some of the voice acting work is voiced, and some of it is stuff you just simply have to read on screen. Sometimes it's frustrating because you find yourself trying to invest more in the story, and you're excited by those moments that are voice acted.
We'll have to go around.
But then you're like, I guess I just have to read 4 or 5 pages of this text here, and it's always worth it though. Every step of the way, the writing is excellent.
It is. There's a real spookiness to this thing. You are a watcher in this game, and this allows you to see the souls of people and read into the histories. You actually communicate with the dead, and of course you pick up a whole cavalcade of interesting characters along the way, and you fight all kinds of things. These little wispy types of creations that shoot electrical bolts were driving me crazy. It's also an incredibly difficult game, even at its easiest settings.
That's true. Not for me, but for regular gamers.
Onward!
What's cool is that it can stand right next to games like Skyrim and Dragon Age Inquisition and be a great alternative. You know, it doesn't feel like they're trying to copy anything. It just feels like a great deviation and a tribute to a golden age of game design.
The huge experiment was a success. I hope they make tons of money here. You guys should play this game. Pillars of Eternity. Victor Lucas, I need a score.
8.5 for me.
Gets an 8.5 for me as well.